Yeah, well, it wasn't a surprise, frankly. You know, I thought with all the different possibilities, it really was down to one or two schools to come to Charlottesville, and with us likely to get a home game. And I thought one of those teams was very likely to be Hopkins. You know, it's a, you know, the lacrosse has changed. You know, when I first got to Virginia, those first round games were a walk in the park. It's no longer that way. We certainly are going to have our hands full on Sunday with Hopkins, but it's also one of those teams on our schedule that has always been one of those that I haven't had to work real hard to get our players' attention for this one. And you know, coming off of last year's result, you know, I certainly think that we've got the full measure of our kids' attention. I think we're working at it as we get our way through exams here, and so I think we'll be ready to play on Sunday.
Now, since the 2011 National Championship, you guys have kind of struggled to pick up wins in the NCAA Tournament. Just how hard is it to win when the calendar flips to May and everybody knows it's win or go home?
I don't think there's any question that it's like I described earlier. I think it's harder to do. This is also the time of the year that people remember at the end of the day, and for a program like ours, you know, this is where we want to be making our mark. We try not to get ahead of ourselves when it's in February and March and April, you know, but we're always in the back of our minds. We're thinking about results in the month of May, and and even first round games, first time games with Hopkins and Syracuse and teams like that. You always know that there could be another game out there, and that second game is the one that's that people are going to remember at the end of the day, and and so we worked hard to put ourselves in this position to earn a home game here. It speaks to the quality of our effort overall for these past 3 months. But now in short bursts, again, this is what people are going to remember ultimately from this 2015 season, and for us, we want to be together for another week. We want to continue to play. Then we got to take care of our business one game at a time, and it starts on Sunday.
Kind of bouncing from that, how big is having this home game, especially with the exam schedule going on and also tough schedules starting on?
Yeah, we try not to get too concerned about those kind of things because you can't always control them. And if we happen to be on the road, then we'd be trying to make the most of a road game. Certainly with us, we'll be in exams until late in the day on Friday. And so it helps us to be at home. It helps us to be playing on Sunday, I think. I think that works for us a little bit, it's people have asked about having beaten Hopkins earlier in the year. Does that help us or hurt us going into this one? The seedings, the rankings, everything else. It really doesn't matter. Again, you got a couple of mature programs here that want to continue to play, and so we've got to be able to use that stuff to our advantage, whichever way we need to, in order to get the best result that we can in this first round game.
You said you weren't really that surprised when you saw Hopkins as the first round matchup. It's the 16th time you guys have played in the NCAA tournament. Is there, why do you think you guys seem to get matched up so much? Is it just a coincidence, or is it something about these two programs?
Well, I mean, the more you're in the playoffs, the more likely you are to have some of these things happen, I think. But I think more than anything else, it's because of geography, because we're there. We're within a bus ride of each other, and again, it speaks highly of our program that we've been here in Charlottesville for these games. Hopkins happens to get the one last year, and we need to turn that around going into Sunday. But because we're a bus ride apart, there's a good chance that we're going to get matched up, unless we're both more likely over in history. Virginia and Hopkins have been in the top 8 and both had home games in the first round of the playoffs. But in years when the situation like this has occurred, then I think that there's a fair chance that we're going to see each other in an early round game.
How does momentum play into this game? You guys are coming off a 12-9 win over Georgetown. They've won 5 straight. How does momentum exist in lacrosse, and can you embrace it, or can you sort of stop another?
I think momentum is something. I think we have played well at the end of the year. Our last 2 games with Georgetown and Penn, I think we sort of got our legs up underneath us again and get off and going. Hopkins has won some games late in the year, so in this case it may not make much of a difference. You want to be playing your best lacrosse at the end of the season as you're going into the playoffs, certainly. But again, if we weren't, we'd be trying to use this as the start of a new season. And there are a couple of teams that did not play well at the very end of the season, but are in the playoffs and excited about doing that. And so, all of these things are things that you look back on after you've played the game, you know, and if you've won, then you use that momentum to your advantage, you know, and vice versa. And so, like I say, it's sort of we're at the bottom line time of the season. You know, it's just you either, you know, win or you're going home, and so we need to use all of these, you know, external factors, use them all to our advantage, whichever way we can, in order to prepare for an important game with Johns Hopkins.
How important is it to stop the Stanwicks, or at least contain them, or are there just a bunch of guys who can hurt you and you're not really focused on just those guys?
No, well, you know, Wells is really the quarterback of their offense, and so that you know, he's sort of the first priority when you're looking at Hopkins offensively. The fact that his name happens to be Stanwick brings it a little closer to home, and then having his younger brother out there also. Shaq is a good young player. He's come on a little bit more as the season has gone on for them. So, you know, they're probably a unit that is better together than any one of their single parts, but Wells and Shaq are two of their key guys, and with the, you know, Hopkins women in town, and Ryan Tucker's mom in town, and Steele coaching the Hopkins women, and having him in town, and we're going to have plenty of Stanwicks in Charlottesville over the course of the weekend, and hopefully we can ruin the homecoming for those guys.
How many times have you said to Steele, why don't you just bring your brothers to UVA? Why don't you recruit?
You know, we recruited all the Stanwicks, and we would have loved to have them all here. And but there are lots of things that go into the recruiting and these kind of decisions. I respect what they've done, and you know, I love the family, and you know, it'll be neat having them all here. And you know, we just need to be able to focus and take care of our own business.
On Monday, you said from a personnel standpoint, both these teams very similar from the first meeting, but that Johns Hopkins sort of evolved. How has this team evolved since that match?
How has our team evolved?
Yes.
Well, you know, we lost Pinnell early in the year, and so from that moment on, you know, we had to be a team that was sort of mixing and matching the pieces, and so we're sort of I wouldn't call us a work in progress at this point in the year. But I think we're not as predictable offensively as we would have been if James had played the whole season. I think, like, Hopkins is playing the same 6 guys on offense primarily that they did 2 months ago, and we continue to move some people around to find the matchups. We're just not we can't just overwhelm you coming out of the locker room the same way. We sort of need to see how the team is defending us, and then what's going to work for us on a particular day, and so that you know, you might prefer to be a little bit more settled, but it's not who we happen to be, and it's been working for us, and so that's sort of has been an ongoing process over the course of the season.
You got 5 ACC teams seeded in this tournament. Obviously, that speaks to just the difficulty of the conference. How does playing in this conference, the ACC, prepare you for the NCAA tournament? And is this game against Hopkins sort of like a conference game in this respect? Well,
I think that the ACC schedule is, you know, steals you for this time of the year. I mean, that's what we believe. You know, again, you know, I think you could make an argument in other years where you feel like, geez, we've been a little bit beat up at the end of the year, and you know, after having gone through sort of the meat grinder of an ACC schedule. But I think it prepares our kids emotionally and physically for the month of May, and like I say, we have always use the ACC schedule as our, you know, as a recruiting chip for us. Look, you want to play the best lacrosse, this is where it's happening, and so I've often said it rings a little hollow for me to be complaining about it, you know, when we're in the middle of it, or if we're on the short end of a couple of those games. You know, overall, you know, I don't think it's a coincidence that the ACC teams are ranked in the top 5 or 6 teams in the country and are likely to be playing at the end of the year. We just want to take care of our business and make sure that one of them is us.